back, everybody, to episode number 3 of our AirlineSim series, where today we're focusing on really starting up the airline. So let's go ahead and go back to our overview. And one thing I want to check first before we start looking at aircraft is our airport. So 4,000 meters of runway. That's a pretty long runway, which means we should be able to run pretty much any aircraft. Now, I would still double check, but 4,000 is going to be enough, especially for the planes we're looking. Now, we're running on a custom server, which means we have a lot of aircraft. Now, everybody has a different way of going about starting this. And this is my personal way that I found to be good, but I can't guarantee it's the best. And it might not even be that great compared to some others. But what I want to do is I'm going to start up with the 37s. Now, something to remember are these are not great aircraft in terms of fuel efficiency, age, and maintenance. These are old aircraft, but they're cheap. So what I want to do is let's take a look. So the 37-300 heavy gross weight is a pretty good aircraft. So some things to look at here is its max passengers 149. And cargo, this really isn't that important. A lot of servers, you're not really going to have cargo unless you're running a dedicated cargo airline, or, for instance, this server where airlines are still getting set up. So there's no real dedicated cargo airlines yet, so you can still fill up your cargo holds. So let's take a look at the heavy gross weight. So it has a range of 3,600 to 5,550. So what's that mean? Well, 3,600 is the range it can fly with full payload. 5,500 is the range it can fly with zero payload. So let's click on this and let's look at it. So here you go. So this is what you can see. That's 3,500 and 5,500. Well, okay, so here it's not a bad drop, but around about 4,800, it drops. So we really don't want to try and run it anywhere close to this. So, okay, well, how do I figure out if my aircraft can do a route particularly well, or how many seats can it hold? Well, there's actually a really good tool built in, and we're going to check out the aircraft type evaluation. So we're going to go ahead and click on that, open that in a new tab. So we're flying out of Seoul, so Incheon, and let's say we're trying to fly to Taipei. We'll hit enter. Okay, so we'll scroll down and we're going to fly the 737-300 heavy gross weight. Well, available seats 149. Okay, well, that's good to know because that means we can still take a full load. And this really is not true to how much money you're going to make. A lot of it's depending on class of service. There's a lot of factors, but this gives you a good idea. And price per seat 74 if that's using your default. So it's saying standard. Very few people run standard, especially in the old servers where the ORS, or the reservation system, prioritizes nicer seats over price. New one's a little bit better. So we're going to probably run Leisure Plus in a price factor of probably 90, just to kind of give us a little bit more. It's going to hurt us financially, but it's going to give us a little bit better of a rating. So we're going to apply the settings, and wow, it did take a hit, but we're going to be pretty competitive on these routes. So 138, well, why did the number go down? That's because the seats I'm running are bigger than the older seats. So we're going to be able to carry less. So it's not that a plane can't carry as many or as much of the weight. It's just it physically can't fit it. Now, one thing to keep in mind is unless you're running a economy-only airline, this is not going to be the true price because you're also going to have to take out, you might only have room for 120 seats and you might be able to fit 10 business class seats in, which take up a little more space, but they also make you a little more money. But let's take a look at, let's say Singapore. Well, 136, okay. So we can we can't transport a full load. Now, like I said, 136 is still higher than the number of seats we're actually going to run. But you can see that as we get a little farther away, we're losing our ability to carry people. So let's do Jakarta, CGK. Well, 54, well, that's just not going to be profitable. I mean, that is, you can't make money. So, I mean, it's showing negative 5,000. That, yeah. And a price per seat of 444. Let's compare that to, say, a Boeing 767-300. That's almost double the price per seat, just because of it's trying to say, well, hey, this is how much it's going to cost us to run you there, and we can't even break even. Okay, so now that we kind of get an idea, and you'll get an idea of how to do that, we can see that the 737's pretty good on every route we need. So let's say Narita, 138, perfect. We saw SGN, Shanghai, really southern route, 138. So I think we can see the 737 is a good one. So now we can order new aircraft. So let's take a look. 2.15 million is going to be the rate. So what a lot of people do, and this is a huge mistake, is they buy their aircraft. Never buy your aircraft unless you have billions, and I actually mean billions of dollars that you need to burn, because the amount of money you spend is just crazy. So for the price of buying one outright, we can lease about 20, probably closer to like 17, but you can see it. But even that's a lot of money, 2.15 million, and that's brand new. If you're going to order a brand new plane, why not just order a brand new 37, 800, 900? So what we're going to do is we're going to check out used aircraft. And what we're going to do is, wow, okay. So let's see. First off, immediate purchase you can use, but I really wouldn't. It's not worth it unless, for instance, on some of the old servers, especially for new airlines, the 757-200 ERs, there's usually like 20 of them. They're really, really good. And sometimes you can justify spending the $2 million to get one of the last planes because there's no way to get more. But on here, we have hundreds. Let's click on this and let's see how many planes. We have 181 of these. And there's still 135 that aren't claimed by any airline. That's plenty. So what we want to do is we want to sort by lowest starting price first. Perfect. So 204. But here's something to keep in mind. Our age is 36.5 years. So what's that mean? Well, first off, that's going to hurt you in your image. So if we come here and we're going to go to our overview, let me close out of this. We are going to go to info page. Actually, sorry, overview. And you can come over here and see image. Well, our image is 1 bar, and last week it was 0. Your image is very slow to grow and very quick to drop. Now, there's nothing wrong with using old planes, especially at the beginning. When you're a young airline, sometimes you have to use them because if you're going up against 1 or 2 huge airlines, running 3 routes with 37-900s is not really going to be able to get you a lot of money. This game is so much like connecting passengers is the name of the game. So it's sometimes worth it to take that image hit and the extra maintenance it's going to cost because it's an older plane. It's going to cost a lot more to keep up. So what we're going to do is we're going to order probably, and we're going to lease. Make sure you hit financing type leasing and auction. So $204,000 is what it's going to cost us for the deposit, which means our leasing rate is always 10% of that. So $20,000. So that means to make off, like to pay off this aircraft in terms of weekly leasing rate, we have to have $20,000 in profit. That's not really that hard. These planes, if you run them, especially if you're running them high frequency, that's pretty easy. So we're going to go through and we're going to order probably about 10 or 15 of these. Why are these? That was weird. I don't know why. I swear it just said like an hour and 45 minutes. That must have been just some glitch. I was trying to figure out what the heck. I thought I messed something up. And if I'm correct, there's, I think, 20 of these, 20 aircraft per page. So we're going to go through, and I'm trying to make sure I don't outbid anybody on any aircraft. Okay, so we have a bunch of those, and that's good. We have some good aircraft we can use on some short haul routes. But now we're going to need a long haul aircraft. Now, the 777, they are gas guzzlers, but they are good aircraft. So what I want to look at is I want to see all the variants of the 777, and I want to select lowest starting. Well, okay, so 200 ER for 800,000? Yes. And now the 300s. These don't have a lot of range, but they are godly on inter-Asian routes. And let's see, what 200 ER for 1.5? Let's take a look at all the 200s. 2 million's a little rough, but let's see. What about 300s? Well, 3 million's not bad, but that's a little pricey. So we're going to kind of avoid those, but we're going to go back and let's see what other aircraft we can get. So we'll get a couple more 300s because we can run these to a lot of destinations inside Asia, and we can run them especially to feed massive waves. Now, the thing about Asia is, especially Korea, is let's go back over here and let's take a look. Geographically, it's a pretty good stopover point between China, Southeast Asia, and the United States. Japan's better, but that's just simply geography. You can't deny Japan is the best stopover point. Historically, I mean, look at the prominence of Narita, an airport almost solely built around stopovers between the United States and Asia. So what we're going to plan on doing is we're going to plan on doing mini waves. We're going to do a couple waves. So we're going to have waves that just connect, South Korea to Asia, Asia to Asia, and just, Hong Kong to Seoul, Seoul to Hong Kong. But also, we want to feed a big wave. And we're going to have a big wave that's going to plan on feeding Asia to America. And in some respects, also Europe to Asia. So one thing to remember, our passengers are willing to go 1.5 times the distance to get from point A to B. Now, the farther they have to go out of the way, the more it's going to hurt. So passengers would still possibly be willing to go London, Gatwick to Seoul to Australia, or, maybe, let's see, Dubai to South Korea to maybe Manila. So they'll go a little bit out of their way, especially if you offer a good price. So now that we have that, let's see. We need one other aircraft grouping that's going to be good. And what you can do over here is when you're trying to find an aircraft that you're thinking, okay, how's this go? You can go select aircraft ranges. And so we're talking about the 777-300. So let's find it. And wow. Well, okay, that looks like it has a ton of range. Not really. This is what you want to pay attention to. This dark blue is where the max payload it can take. So it can fly with a full passenger payload, and I think cargo as well, inside this blue little area. So we can get to India, we can get almost to Australia with it. But we really can't do JFK, Los Angeles. However, you're rarely going to ever run a 777-300 with, let's see, how many seats? It should be, 550. You're not really going to ever run it with 550 total seats. So you can probably run it effectively all the way to Los Angeles. It all depends on how many seats you're putting in it. If you're only putting it, say you're running a super premium one where you're running 200 seats, well, then you probably won't have much of an issue trying to get to Chicago, maybe even JFK, because as long as it can carry the 200 seats, then you really don't have to worry about it. If it's, if you have 200 seats and you're trying to see if it can carry 210, well, that makes no sense. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, let's try and find the one other class. But I'm thinking we're probably gonna end up running 2 more classes because we need cheap aircraft off the bat. Now the 737 is great. However, if I'm bringing in a 747 from LA with 400 people on it, the 37s might not be able to get the oomph in terms of trying to get the amount of passengers I want to Shanghai and Beijing if they're connecting on. So we might consider going with some 67s. Now, the reason I say that is the 67 is just a god tier airplane because look at this. The 67-300, I effectively run the 67-300 with Braniff from Newark all the way to Beijing. Not a bad aircraft. And it can get almost full payload to Eastern Europe and almost down to Sydney. But here's the other thing. Well, okay, maybe that the 300 might not be exactly what we want. Maybe we want a little less payload but more range. We get the 200 that can go full into Seattle. I mean, we can take full payload to London. And there's no downside to going with both of those. Or say we really want some higher payload and shorter range 67s. We got the 400. Go to Dubai, can still pretty much go everywhere here. Almost can get to Honolulu. That's close enough that it can run to Honolulu without an issue. So we're seeing a lot of promise there. So I think the 67 is what we're going to go with as a second or as our third aircraft group. So let's go ahead and check. Now, a lot of people are buying up 300s. Let's see how many are left. There's still 149 left. But let's see. How cheap are they? Those are cheap. Now, something to consider, especially when buying these, is the version you want. So if we come back to 37s, we have the base gross weight and the heavy gross weight. Well, what's that mean? Ultimately, the heavy gross weight can just carry more. And that comes with a cost. On certain routes, it's going to make a lot less money. So let's take a look at something. Let's look at ICN to PEK. And we're going to go down to the 737, 300, and there we go. So they'll carry the same amount of people, but first thing we notice is, okay, $200 more in fuel. And capital cost is a little bit more. And the ticket price, $3 more. Well, not a big deal. But look at that. You're talking almost $400, a little over $400 extra just to use the heavy gross weight. Well, okay. So does that mean I shouldn't use it? No. But if we look at something, say 777s, sometimes it can make a big difference, or 67s. Then, okay. By the way, you can hit control when selecting, and you can select a couple at a time, so control click. There we go. Well, holy cow, that's a $2,000 difference. Why is that? Well, you have capital cost is lower by $1,000, and fuel is almost $1,000. And so that's something to keep in mind. So if we're running, Seoul to even Singapore, it still makes a lot more sense to run the 300 as opposed to the 300ER. But if you're running Seoul to, say, San Francisco, you want the 300ER. So a big thing to balance is, well, would I rather have 300ERs where I can do all, have consistency, and if this isn't working on a route, I can pull it off, put it on a different route? Or do I want to kind of spread things out and hope I get enough of each? So we're going to get a couple of these 300s because they are good aircraft, and for $500,000, they're not bad. Then we're going to pick up a couple of the 300ERs. Now, we're gonna order 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, that one. Okay, perfect. We got at least or enough to get the under million grouping, and we'll get 2 more of these. And I would like to see how much the 400ERs are going for. They're nice planes. The 400ER is a newer plane. They're great. Honestly, in one server, I was getting better money out of my 400ERs than I would out of 787s, which is pretty crazy. But I'm not going to pay $1 million per aircraft because I can get two 67s for that price almost. Well, okay, so now we have some aircraft. Let's go take a look at some 737s and let's get a couple more. And this time we're going to get the 400 heavy gross weights because the 400s can carry a lot of people. They are equivalent to the 737-800. They're just a much older version, but they are good. So we're going to order probably a full page of them. And this will give us enough aircraft to really have a good operation going. Because I want to set up a strong domestic, but I also want to really focus on trying to be a gateway to Asia from the Americas. And try and possibly run stopovers from Europe to Australia and Oceania later on. And here we go. So what's going to happen is it's going to take us an hour. So we'll click on your bids and you can see every aircraft we've bid on. So 47 minutes for the first aircraft and 60 minutes for the last aircraft. So I will catch y'all back. We'll probably do another video where we'll set up some service profiles and cabin configurations, and then we'll actually get to scheduling in another one. So until then, y'all have a good one and goodbye.